Episode 215 Above Ground Podcast. Never underestimate the power of you.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Coming at you live with real conversations about mental health from the perspective. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now your hosts, TPP and Will Foley. Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 215 of Above Ground Podcast. Above Ground Podcast.
Because you can't serve below.
No, you cannot. That's right, TPP. You cannot serve below. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
My throat's going on.
Your throat is on fire?
It's not on fire, it's just annoying.
All right. Allergy season.
Yeah.
That's what summertime does to you. But something else. Have you been talking a lot lately? Have you been discussing things lately? Have you been out there talking about the power of you?
I haven't. Not enough.
Not enough. That's right. This week's episode, we're going to talk about Timmy's book. Timmy was like, I'm so happy and proud of him, man. He, like, of course, I didn't know he was writing a book. It just kind of happened. And then he said, I got a book.
I didn't really, yeah.
But,
I didn't tell
that's
anybody.
how he is, though. He doesn't tell you anything. So.
Jesus Christ. I write a book and he's making it about him. Here we go.
Yeah, that's right. Don't make it about me.
No, I to be honest with you, it was kind of like, I knew what I was doing, but I was just so in the process that I didn't really think of the end result. And I'm like, I never said to myself, I'm going to do it like until like 2 weeks before. Like, I wasn't like, this is definitely going to happen.
So let's start there then.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even like do the promo thing
That's all
for
right.
it because we just kind of started in. But as the process, was this a process that unfolded out of like something that you had learned coming from your therapy? Were these some of the tools that you were using with your DBT therapy after
Yes, I think so. I think it was
because you've talked about journaling a lot.
It was definitely journaling. It came a lot of it came from journaling. So, what you've always said, get it out of your head and get it on paper. It just helps. And sometimes you just don't really know what. You don't sit down and go, I'm going to write. It just kind of comes out sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't come out. And that's what I mean. A lot of this stuff really it was a journal. It wasn't like really, you couldn't like put things together and read it as like paragraphs. It was just more like.
So it wasn't like a step-by-step process?
No.
Because as looking through it and reading it and seeing the stuff in it, there's some like cool stuff in there about like things to do with your senses, which we'll get to later. But I didn't envision it being like it's because it's definitely not a step-by-step thing anyway. And none of this is, because we've always talked about, this is fluid. This, just like everything else.
And in fact, I think I even, like, I emphasize in the book, like, try these things, but don't take my word for it, or don't just stick to these things. There's no set rules, and some of these things, if you find, your 5 or 6 things that you go to and you incorporate them into a daily routine, they could change down the road. Don't be like, well, these are it, and this is concrete. If you find new things that are better for you in that moment, if your life changes in 4 years, then incorporate those. But the end goal is to, create some joy and peace in your life. So whatever it is that does that, that's what you need to hold on to.
Was this a process of you? Did you create joy for yourself out of this? Or has this actually brought on more anxiety?
No, it did in the beginning just because of my own, you're like the slew of, is it good enough? Or, I can't believe I'm really going to like put this out there. And then you don't think of it until somebody reads it and then they go, wow, like I would have never known that about you or whatever. And then you're like, oh yeah, like I put that in there. So it's like, it's a little bit, it was a little bit anxiety inducing in the beginning, but it's like, I don't know. I think the part that, like you were saying, it just helped me. It helped me further my healing, and it just helped bring me. It helped bring me back to that creative side of things, of just creating. And I think that was the cool part, was taking all this journaling and like finding pieces, expanding on them, and then finding more important key things and putting it in some kind of order, you know?
That's cool.
That part was fun, like piecing together a song.
Right. I was going to say, was it for you, was it like that?
Mm-hmm.
Was it musical like that, where it was like you were hitting certain passages where, okay.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I got to ask this question because this just came to mind, and you'll probably like this just because you and maybe not. Maybe you hadn't thought about it. Maybe you did. What was your soundtrack during all of this? Did you have a soundtrack during this? Or are you not able to access things with other noise?
You know, I don't think I could really pinpoint one thing. I think there was a slew of things. I think it wasn't just music, but I think it was experiences. You know, and I think, you know, even with now with the podcast, you know, sometimes I'll take inspiration from music or from songs, but sometimes I'll be watching a movie and I'll hear a line, and that'll create this idea for a new meme, for a design, you know? So it's like sometimes it's a movie, sometimes... there wasn't like a strict playlist, though, no. Nothing really pops out, believe it or not. I think it was just kind of... I think there was a time where I would come home, once it like started to kind of... you could kind of see this thing forming. I would come home and not really, like, obviously not turn the TV on or any music or anything, and just try to kind of focus on this, and like almost like, I guess, like clay, and play with it like clay, and keep folding it and manipulating it, and is this cool, or maybe this, how should I say this? And a lot of those designs that, you know, I make for us are sort of part of this too, because that's where it like stemmed from, like all that stuff, you know. That's where, like, I was taking these little things that I was writing, just little pieces, and then I'd be like, I'd put it out there, and then I'd read it again, and then in my head I'd be like, well, I could actually probably expand on this, you know. It's not just like a 2 or 3 sentence thing. I think there's more to it than that. So that's where that incorporated in there as well.
I see the correlation of the art throughout, and I know that you had Phil Montalone. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Montalone. Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry, Phil.
Sorry, Phil. I was going to murder that name, man. I apologize, dude. But he had done some art in there, and you're talking about inspiration from other stuff. Mm-hmm. And that is important when you're an artist. What is your biggest inspiration?
In general, or from
where do you find inspiration on a day-to-day just to keep going?
Well, you know, and I think it's funny you say that, because I never, like, I think I did it, and, you know, maybe unconsciously, but consciously, I don't know. But there's quotes before each chapter, and I think those are some of the quotes that have been there for me, have gotten me through, and like, you know, just one of them says, "Health is not valued till sickness comes." You know, and these quotes are some of them are, you know, extremely old quotes, but that holds so true today. Like, if that doesn't, you know, speak volumes, you know what I mean? You don't realize it until you're sick, and then you go, oh, geez, you know. And I think you know, in the beginning, I was really, really into Buddhism, and, you know, trying to consume as much of it as I could, and again, a quote from Buddha is, "Suffering is not holding you, you are holding suffering." Stuff like that just kind of made sense to me. So I think I've learned that hearing people's stories, maybe listening to some motivational and inspirational speeches, of people that have overcome like great adversity is an inspiration for me. People that I guess face fear, because this was kind of a fear thing for me to do, just because it was like, in the book I talk about the brain gremlins and how they basically, are there to kind of screw everything up for you, as a gremlin does. And so it was like, in a sense, like me actually following through with it was selfish in a way, because it was for me. It was me to silence those gremlins and say, hey, you know what? You can keep talking, but I'm going to do this. And here, I did it. Like, here it is. It's done. Like, I did it. I followed through, and I did this. So it's like it's one of those, we talked a few weeks ago on like self-love. It's one of those steps of just kind of taking that small risk. And then when you do it and accomplish it, you go, okay, that's a little bit bigger step. Like, you feel like you've, you set a goal and you achieve that goal, whatever that is. And to me, that is success. It's not like, it's not 10,000 followers. It's not, being a millionaire. It's setting a goal, whatever it is that you may want to do, and actually achieving that goal.
Very cool. You see, we all possess the ability to be the captain of our vessel and choose what and what not to prioritize. I would not consider this to be a regular old self-help book. I like to think of it more as a help yourself book. I love that line.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that too.
What other help yourself books did you use as some of your education? I mean, I know you've mentioned Carolyn Leaf in here and James Clear and I think Dr. Joe Dispenza and stuff, but
the Four Agreements is usually like one of the biggest ones for me. It's kind of like rules for life for me. Those Four Agreements are just, once you realize what they are and are aware enough to how much they pop up and how much they can either be helpful or unhelpful in your life, it's like, oh wow, these are important things, So that definitely Joe Dispenza. I think it was like breaking the habit of being you might be the name of it.
Sometimes that's a habit we can all break.
Yeah, so it's about, those things gave me, I guess, some hope and inspiration. Like, instead of saying like, oh, well, you know what, I have depression or this is just the way I am. Like, I hate when fucking people say that. Like, this is just the way I am, whatever. Like, okay, it is, and you're probably right. You're probably not going to dramatically change from that, but you can improve. And if you're like, well, if this is the way I am and it's causing you suffering, you can decrease some of that suffering. It's not like there's nothing set in stone, you know what I mean? Like, you can do things to improve or to decrease the suffering. And it's just things that I've learned. It's things that I've done. So I know that these things truly work. And again, just reading other books and listening to other people speak, that you see that it's, there's a lot of truth to it.
Speaking of doing things, you talk a lot about the senses and utilizing your senses as part of your healing.
Yeah.
Because obviously your senses play a lot in. I mean, obviously we think a lot when we see things, smell things, feel things. So
Right.
where did that start from? How did you start to come into the sensory thing being such an integral part of you getting to yourself?
I think it was for a long time a part of it. I just didn't realize it. It was like stuff that you normally would do, and you just do it, and you then realize like, wait a minute, this is actually beneficial.
It almost seems like there could be things in there that you had learned as a kid, even.
Yeah.
Because I recognize this myself,
Yeah.
that there was things that my grandmother did when I was growing up that I do now, and if I did them regularly, I would be a fucking powerhouse. Because she did. She got up at 4 every morning. Like, it was
Yeah.
just these things, and you don't realize how
Right.
that pattern. So I didn't know if this was there were things that you may have learned that you didn't realize that. That was actually good.
Yeah, some things I did, but again, I wasn't really mindful of it, and I didn't. Early on, I was always like striving for like, that can't be the answer. It's got to, it's got to be something extravagant. And I think a lot of people have that mindset of like, it can't be that easy. Like, you can't just, be mindful and have that help that much. And yeah, you actually can.
Yeah, it's almost.
That's what I mean.
But
But
that's
like,
the thing, though. Being simple, people think it's got to be this complicated, convoluted process where it's not.
And I think that's kind of that's actually more like overview of the book, is it's more of that, cut away the fat and slice up the good stuff. And it's like simple. And I think the vision, the hearing, the touch, taste, smell, these are things that most people can do. And most of the time, you don't have to spend any money or anything to do it. You can do them almost anywhere.
It's true, too.
Like you probably, just talking about what we were talking about, did you grow up with animals, or were you just always...
No, I never had animals.
But like you became
I loved
an
animals.
Right.
I just loved them.
But you grab a cat or a dog and you're petting it, and like you don't realize it, but that's actually soothing you.
Oh, very much.
But you may not have realized it at the time, years ago. I don't know. Maybe you did, but like sometimes you don't realize that stuff until later on, and then you're like, wait a minute, was that actually... Yeah. And then, then you look into it more, and it's the connection that's involved, and, there's a lot of stuff involved, but...
You hit on it, and we hit on it every week. It's
Right.
about connection, and it's what you can connect to. And
Yeah.
connecting to this book is very easy because you make it very easy to follow and read, because it's not a step-by-step guide.
No,
it's cool the way you laid it out and stuff. What is, out of these senses, do you find yourself relying on one thing over another sometimes? I mean, I know we talk about music all the time, so that's probably
usually hearing for me.
Yeah.
Hearing hearing or smell, because I've noticed that I've always been a super sensory person, but even like if you have like a house that maybe dusty or dirty by your own standards or whatever, but if you have like some kind of smell going on, or some fresh flowers or something like that, you go in there and you have this, you're like, whoa, and like you feel like things are clean and they're not dirty or out of place because you're smelling this.
Oh, so if you get a whiff of something that reminds you of something fresh and clean,
yes,
then you're comfortable, and it's a calming thing.
It's a calming thing.
So it's about calming.
Yes.
What other calming tools do you use besides the music and the scent thing?
I think breathing for me. I usually incorporate, like every morning I try to stretch, and obviously when I'm stretching I'm breathing. So I try to just 5-10 minutes. It's not much, but I try to stretch out and just kind of give myself that kind of like that, just the you know what I mean, just that sigh of letting things go, and kind of. It helps me to actually stay in the moment too, because sometimes you wake up already with that impending doom, and you don't even know what day it is, but you have that impending doom that's just there. And you're like, and you don't want to put the feet on the floor yet because you know as soon as you do, okay, here it goes. It's going to get hard, So if you can take time to before that happens and just breathe and go, like, let me just, like, kind of not even think of anything, And it's funny because I use, which I know you're a fan of, Stranger Things. Which, the upside down, when you see 11 in there, she's like usually by herself and it's like just black. And I always try to picture that, but picture me instead of 11. And it's just like trying to just clean it out. Cleaning out the Vecna. Just clean out the Vecna. To get rid of Vecna and just clean it out and then just start fresh. And now you can start your day and not be, not have a full mind before the day even starts. That's kind of, and I do little things like, again, these are little things that I've always done, but I didn't realize that they were helpful for me, is I'll put my clothes out at night for the day, for the next day, for the morning, I'll put my work clothes out tonight for tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning, it's one less thing. Everything's right there. I grab the pile and just... So
you've kind of put some fail safes in your day to say, okay, I can mitigate my stress if I just put my clothes out. I put the tea bag in the cup, get the water in the teapot, and get ready in the morning. So all I got to do is turn it on, hit the shower, and it's going to be done by the time. Yeah, that's good.
But I think you have to be careful because you don't want to go through it like a robot either.
Well, I'm going to ask you this because I've known you for a very long time, and you and I are a lot alike in a lot of ways. So some things are very hard for you to let go of.
Yeah.
Have you found it easier since writing the book to be able to let go of things, or are you still rigid when it comes to certain change and things, or are you finding that
I definitely think I've been able to kind of release things easier and just let go in general. Easier. And certain things, it's like you notice with certain people, like maybe they'll just oh, the weather sucks or gas prices are high. It's like, for me, I'm like, that's not even in my radar. I'm just like, if that's the worst thing, right now, great. It's just it's not even in my radar. I just don't care. It just doesn't come into my view because I'm like, I need gas. I'm just going to buy it because I need it. That's how it is.
And you also can afford it. So don't, so you have those, you're lucky to have those things that you've set yourself up with, that you're fortunate enough to have, that allow you to not have to worry about those things, that give you the space to work on the other things.
Yes. Yeah, and I think like you said, I kind of strategically do these things though, which I think I've done as a kid to feel
right. They seem like survival mechanisms, right? And that's was the book about survival, or is it about something else?
That's a great question. I guess it could be for some people about survival. I think it's if I had to guess, I think it would be more of I didn't really set an intention with it. It kind of just was happening. But I did want things to be kind of, I can't, for lack of a better word, easy to read and put into, put into a routine or whatever, be able to actually incorporate it into your life. Not something like, well, you need to, 5 steps of you need to get up at 3 a.m. and do 600 push-ups and run 4 miles. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, I like the way that you kind of said, this is my map.
Right.
And this is my
Blueprints,
the blueprint, but your blueprint's going to be different.
Right.
And that's what I like about it, because it's not like, these aren't like, again, that like for us, at least in our conversations over the last 4 years, what I've found is the more that you learn, the less you actually know, because it's just changes things for, because
Sure.
you can look at things a little differently.
Yeah.
So how has your view of you changed since this?
Not much, unfortunately. I think sometimes sometimes it might be a little bit, I don't know, maybe I should say maybe I'm a little bit harder on myself now, because some people are like, oh, like, you're an author. And I'm like, no, no, I'm not. Or I just wrote a book. They're like, well, yeah, but you're an author. It's like, so I don't like, because in my mind, I'm like, well, geez, if I'm an author, that means this could be read by somebody, and it's got to be good. You know what I mean? But if I'm just like, I'm not really a writer, I just write some stuff and keep it like that.
Imposter syndrome.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look. So we're in the throes of the summer of 2023, and obviously anybody who listens to this show knows who Tim is. Tim is the former drummer of Section 8, and Section 8 has recently put out Pain is Truth and 9 Ways to Say I Love You on Spotify.
Truth, yeah.
Yeah. And
you're right. True story.
And how has that process this time around been different for you?
I haven't really had much of a hand in it, so I think, because normally I would try to be more involved, and I'm not intentionally, like, I'm going to use the word, but like have more control over it, so I think maybe that's part of it, is letting go, and just like, again, these things are like very low on my radar. Like, I can't worry about, if there's a glitch here, or if someone's going to like that. It's like, as you know, sometimes it's like, I'm just trying to get through my day. Some days it's that high up there. Like, I just, I just need to make it through my day. So I can't worry about, if something's going to happen or not happen. It's like, I'm focused on this,
But does it give you a sense of accomplishment? Does it bring up
the book or the Spotify?
The Spotify, because obviously the book is huge, but having the Spotify brings part of your past back that you can now, with all of your tools and a different outlook, view differently. So I'm kind of curious to know how, after going through the book process, what is it like to see something that you did that long ago kind of come back and say, guess what? We told you this was your legacy, man. You're going to have to face it at some point.
I never thought to even think about it. Because it's still kind of new as far as being up on, streaming.
Yeah, it's only been streaming for a couple months, but
it's kind of cool to see. It's kind of cool to see actually people still care about it and like enjoy the music and like look forward to it. And again, maybe some of the, after the book, or when you're into music and you're like, oh, this song is important to me. Like, what that means. So when someone says that about something that you wrote, it just hits a little harder now. And I'm like,
well, then I'm going to stroke your ego then right now. 'Cause the thing is that I never realized until I heard it yesterday again on my way into work. No one. And then I was like, because I said this on my Facebook post, that I used to blast that song when I used to work at Northeast One Stop. We were a music distributor, and on WVCR at lunchtime, they would play like requests, and that song, I swear to Christ, would come on every day. And every day when that song came on, I would hear the intro, and that thing would go all the way to 10, and you would hear that all the way through the warehouse.
That's funny.
But I related to it in a completely different way than I
you
did before. How do you relate to your writing and to hearing those songs? Like, how do you relate to your past and your present at the same time?
Those are good questions. I haven't really given much thought of it. I will say, I haven't really put much time into Pain is Truth quite yet. My son started listening to it, and he's actually like very fond of it. And he said something to me very cool that was like, now I am gonna actually go back and like listen to it, because he said, he was just saying like, oh, this is cool, and do you remember like what this was like, and this song's awesome. Why did it, and he was like, why don't you really seem to like it that much? And I was like, I don't know, it's just really old for one, and I'm like, I don't know if it holds up. I'm like, the recording was kind of shitty, we were young, and he said, yeah, but you have no problem like listening to Black Sabbath or Misfits. That stuff's old and the recordings aren't the greatest. And I go, yeah. He goes, the songs are just good. And I was like, yeah, you're right.
And he's right.
Like,
Because I listened to the whole thing the other day. Yeah, and I was like, wow, man. I'm like, these songs are really good. And they do stand the test of time. Because when you look at the history of the hard music that we come from and listen to, like, those songs still stand up. They still stand up.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess I see it differently because maybe you can, understand that. I guess, if like somebody hears your song, maybe it's like you may see it differently because it's.
Yeah, like if you pull the Freak Nation CD out, like I listen to it, but I hear everything. I hear all the things we didn't fix. I hear all the I hear all of it.
Yeah.
But just like you, I've had to come to terms with my feelings about my own legacy. And that is a story for a whole other time. You know what I mean? Because that's still unfolding.
Right. Yeah,
because we have to rectify the past. Because again, you can run, but you always got to come back to where you start. Because you've got to have a starting point, and your end point is going to be somewhere, but you're always going to end up someplace.
Yeah, I think and I don't know if this is kind of where your question was going, but I think for me, it was like there's some things that I was like, I felt good about how maybe I handled things or did things, because now, like, that I know better, I can look back on it and go, yeah, some of that stuff was toxic. It was like,
I'm glad you said the word toxic, because I'm actually going to ask you this because it was your reaction to how your son mentioned it. How do you remember all those feelings? Do you remember what was going on? Do you remember the state of mind you were in during the recording of any of that stuff? Do you do you remember the story?
At least the first album I remember being, we were young, but I remember just being like very laid back and just fun. Like there wasn't any pressure, and like we didn't really know better to go like, we got to make sure it's real tight. Like we probably, I'm sure we did, but we weren't like, it wasn't like very, very picky. Like the second one, 9 Ways, the full length, that was more like you would picture a studio. We were in there going like, that could be better, that kind of thing. And then unfortunately, because of money sake and time, we weren't really able to go back and like really perfect it. But I'm still happy with it. There's a couple things that stand out, but nothing like, but I think for the I don't know. I think the first one was more, for some reason the word innocent is coming to my mind. It was more like just guys that were friends that were like creating music and and putting it out and doing that. You know, not really knowing what they were doing or getting into either.
Well, how long was it between the recording of those two? I mean, you probably had to have a lot of shows under your belt by then.
It was over 2 years.
Because you had to spend. Were you playing any of those songs already for the second record?
Before we recorded
Before you recorded it?
I think we were maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there was one of them, I believe, we kind of like had, but then it wasn't full. And then when we went in, we, music-wise, kind of revamped it and was like, whoa, this is it. And then Casey didn't quite have anything for it. And I remember it was either late at night or early in the morning, and no one was there. It was just him and Tom Case recording, and they pounded it out. And we came there and they're like, well, this is what we tried today. And we were like, holy shit, like, this is really good. So it was almost like sort of written in the studio that, you know, for that one.
That's cool.
Yeah. But, you know, it's hard to, with life, you could understand this, but it's hard. Sometimes we let the shitty negative times overshadow some of the good.
Yeah.
And we forget about the good. So I don't know if that's how our brains work sometimes, unfortunately.
Oh, I think it is.
As like a protective,
yeah, it's a protection.
survival thing. So there's, you know, there's some of that involved. It's just like, I don't know, the word petty comes to mind. It's like, we're just older now. It's like, you know, it'd be nice to have people just kind of like bury the hatchet and go, hey, you know what? Like, this is like cool that we're on Spotify now. Cool. All right. What do you think? Yeah, this is cool. All right. You know what I mean?
It is cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
It is cool.
And it should be.
Yeah.
It should be, man. I've told you that forever. Like, you.
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I just, I kind of let Mike kind of go with it, and we had talked more about the 9 ways, and he was like, I'd like to see how this does before, you know, we put the Pain is Truth up, and I was like, yeah, just let me know before you do it, and then he, like, you know, a month or whatever, and he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing it. You know, I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, people, you know, according to the Facebook page, like, that's what they were asking for, is like, when are you going to put the first one on? So, yeah.
Good.
So it's like, I don't know, sounds corny, but like for the fans.
So was it Spotify only?
Yeah.
Okay. But your book, Never Underestimate the Power of You.
That's
Like, it's how do you, so what is it like now for you to look back and go, wow, I got CDs here and then I got a book here? Does it matter?
No.
No.
It doesn't. I'd love to say it does, but it just doesn't for me. It's like, I'm still here. I'm still the same guy. You know, I mean, I'm a little bit more aware now, and I'd like to say I'm a little bit more regulated now, but like, it doesn't mean much, you know? I guess until it does, you know, until somebody says, hey, you know what, this song saved my life. Or, hey, you know what, there's a chapter in this book that I really resonated with and I learned something, so thank you. And then it does mean something. But like, just as an everyday thing of like, yeah, you know, it's a book. You know, that's it.
Well, it's not just a book, man. It's
Yeah.
a book that you put your heart and soul into.
Yeah, it is.
And to tell you the truth, it's awesome to just see. Like, it's so cool.
It is cool.
That just like, you can't take that away from anybody. You said that before. That
Right.
You can't, like, you put yourself out there. You got to be in the arena. You can
Right.
say anything you want, but you got to be in the arena.
I did. That's exactly.
And you did it.
And that was, you know, it's funny actually. I didn't even realize it until you just said it. But that was kind of my mantra was, you know what, I'm doing it. You know, if you're not putting, like, how many books have you put out, or what have you have for sale on Amazon? Like, you know, and it's not about like, ooh, my ego, but it's just like, you know what, I did it. It's like, I would never have sat there and say, hey, I'm an author and this is what I'm going to do. It's just, it's my thoughts. It's and now it's on print, and you can't take,
But you are an author. I mean,
Yeah.
You put out a record, you're a songwriter. You put out a book, you're an author. I mean,
I know
but it's uncomfortable for you to probably say.
Right, because you could say to somebody else, like, you're a songwriter, and you'd put out, but then someone were like, well, you're an excellent songwriter, and you're like, yeah. Like, you may not take it as well as...
Yeah, I don't.
Right.
I don't. I'm just like you with that. I don't... okay, all right, dude, whatever.
And you're really more accomplished with that than I am, for sure. You have way more, music under your belt, and more, recently.
You have the legacy that I will never have, and that holds weight though, dude. Because I'm going to tell you this: there is something, you changed people's lives before you even know you could change your own. Okay, and that is a fact. I know throughout music that there's people that I've touched because people have told me that, and I've experienced that, but I didn't experience it. You have something that a lot of people would kill for. And it's awesome because you created something. You guys all created something that nobody will ever create again. No, I mean, none of those bands will ever create what they created then, because it was the time, it was the place, and it was all those bands. But because of the legacy that you left behind, like that is shit you cannot take away. And you definitely probably have some hand in some of these bands now, because there's no doubt about it. You know what I mean? Just like, and the great thing is that, like, you're still here, man. You didn't choose to end your life when you could have. And you got to the point of realizing how important it is to put yourself out there. Because your book, you're a little bit more vulnerable in your book than you are normally.
And that's what I meant. Like, once you start, once you sold a couple copies, and people are like, oh wow, I didn't know that. And then you're like, and then you realize it, like, oh yeah, wait a minute, shit, like, I did put that, like, that's out there now, and you read it. So, but you're the master of qualm for me with that stuff, is being vulnerable and telling your story. And it's like, I've seen, you do it numerous times, and I've seen people, like, in the moment get inspired by your story and amazed and curious, so it's, as we come to learn, is vulnerability is the real strength. It's true raw strength, power that you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah, it can be, and it takes practice, and sometimes it takes a little not giving a fuck what anybody thinks. And, it also, but it hurts.
Oh yeah,
it hurts.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why to me it's strength. It's mass courage to, whether or not you're shaking, whether or not your voice cracks, you're doing it, and you did it, and that's, to me, in my book, that's huge. Like, anybody that can do that is, because as you know what I mean. If you've done it, it's a big deal.
It is.
And you're doing it also to not necessarily put yourself out there, but to get information out there that could possibly, give somebody some hope, or give somebody a tool, or some kind of inspiration or motivation, or something to hold on to, even if it's for a day. Like, that's huge,
I gotta share this though, because Timmy's book is available on Amazon. It's also available at the Sages Circle in Glenville, and I believe it's still available at the Stuyvesant Book House in Stuyvesant Plaza. But on Amazon, he's got some great reviews, man, and I got to read this one because this is awesome. This is like the first review the first review that's on my page anyway. It's a 5-star review, and it says, one of the most useful books ever written. Not only is this book an insight into the depths of mental wellness, it has great pieces of graphic art inserted throughout. You can really tell of the thought and patience taken by the author. So it goes to show that you doing this, you putting those things together for yourself, that's how we really create change. And we do it, man. We change ourselves. We put it out there and we do it. And
I guess you don't realize those little things of in that nature of, because that was the part for me that I really enjoyed was I knew like I wanted this illustration here, and I knew I wanted to put quotes, and I knew I wanted to do the chapters related to music. You know what I mean? Each chapter is either a song or, I got Into the Void, and they kind of go, it kind of matches up with the chapter. Chapter 6 is Pain is Truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there we go.
Chapter 5 is Beneath the Remains.
Right.
And I think I was talking about the blueprints and going through all the wreckage and stuff like that, So, yeah, and the routine maintenance, which isn't a song, but routine maintenance part for me was, that was more of like, I think everybody's got their own thing and their staple. And I think routine maintenance is kind of mine because it's, I'm sure people have talked about it, but maybe in a different way and called it something different. So I feel like that was a little bit special, specifically for me, the routine maintenance part. I was kind of proud with that, and I feel strongly like that's what we need to do is routine maintenance. It's, we're not being proactive at all when we don't do these things.
You're right.
And I think that's the way to do it.
I want to read another review because this one's great, man. Truly valuable reading material. Really wonderfully written book that helps you look at all those things that might bring you some form of hardship from another perspective. Provides valuable tools and insights. Author has a really great way of relating to his reader in a way that seems both genuine and compassionate with a true desire to help others. Would make a great addition to any help yourself library, as the writer calls it, or meaningful gift for a friend or loved one. Yes, meaningful gift for a friend or loved one, and very helpful for your help yourself library. Because we've talked about this before and as when Timmy put it down on paper, it was great to see it like written out, help yourself, because we've talked about it in the past at self-help books. It's a lot of the same information, but I think we hit on this before about keeping things simple, and maybe it's so simple because that we just that we just question it.
Yeah, and I think I really tried to emphasize that. Like you read that little piece about the being the captain. It's like we're all able to be the captain of our own vessel. It's like we have that opportunity, if you want to call it that, and to just do it, to just take that seat and like you're in charge. You decide. Write down what you want to, like where you see yourself, where you want to see yourself, and then figure out what the steps include to get there. And the habits that you're going to have to incorporate to get through those steps, to get to that next point, kind of strategically.
It's all about putting the map together, right?
Yeah.
Taking the treasure map and hitting the dots and there's the connection. There's the connection. There's the connection.
You need some kind of, again, building a house, you need blueprints. You need to figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work, what's going to sustain, what's going to withhold, and what's not.
Withhold as far as...
Withstand. I'm sorry.
I was going to say withhold. You don't want your house to withhold anything from you.
Withstand. My bad. I should have known. Sorry, Kevin. Withstand. I don't know what I was... I think I looked at something.
Well, judging from your book, you can withstand a lot. So, I mean, that's the one thing about Above Ground Podcast. You can withstand a lot more than you give yourself credit for, and you should give yourself more credit all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll buy that. So
yeah, you should buy that, and you everyone out there should go out and buy the book if you haven't bought it already.
The link will be in the bio, as I think Will usually puts it in there.
Yeah, link will be in the show notes.
If you're local, go get it at the Sages Circle.
Yeah, Sages Circle, Stuyvesant Bookhouse, and Stuyvesant Plaza in Albany and Western Ave. Also, Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon's the easiest way to do it if you're out of town or whatever. Or if you see us at an event, well,
That's true.
then you can get a copy then for right from the author.
Right from the author.
He maybe leave an autograph for you.
He might.
And take a picture with your baby. Yeah, so until you see us the next time and take pictures with your babies, get well.
Be safe.
Stay
above. Thank you for giving us a listen. New episodes every Wednesday. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can share, rate, review, and even subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Other ways to support the show: follow us on social media, share the content, share our episodes. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/abovegroundpod. For further concerns, show ideas, or just to say hi, you can email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting mental health. Keep the conversation going and stay above.